Good morning, Morav. Bez Hashem, Mincha is going to be 4:15. Please be on time. The Gemara talks about, we were discussing this a few days ago, if a person is in a building and the building collapses on him, and they don't know, is he alive, is he not alive, they are allowed to save him. If you're in a case of safek, you're in a case of doubt, you're allowed to clear all the rubble, even on Shabbat, it's pikuach nefesh, and you're allowed to save the person. Well, the Gemara talks about how does one determine if a person is alive or not alive. Let's say you see him there and you don't know. You see the person, it seems like he could use help if he's still alive, but if he's dead, there's no point, and you'll be violating Shabbat. So what are you supposed to do to determine if a person is really alive or not? So the Gemara says you check with the nose. You check to see if they're still breathing. If there's no more breathing, then he's already not alive. And that's how you make a determination between life and death. And of course, that is the true reality. A person that no longer is breathing, so then that is considered to be that he's not alive. The interesting thing is, though, in recent times, what developed is all these techniques where they could bring a person back to life, essentially, by doing CPR, by ventilation, by all of these different types of things and mechanisms. A person could stop breathing, and it could be for even some time. Even a few minutes, a person could stop breathing and he could still be fine, meaning people could still go ahead and doctors could come in and CPR and all these other things, and they could resuscitate the person. So in those circumstances, which is by and large, you can no longer make a determination based on checking the breath, because there's so many mechanisms to bring a person back to life, to resuscitate the person. So under those conditions, it becomes a little bit more difficult to assess what is considered the point of no return, where a person's considered to be dead. Obviously, if the whole mechanism, the internal mechanism, let's say the heart stops working and the breathing is no longer functioning, and there is no resuscitation, didn't work, and it has failed, so then clearly that's already a very clear sign of death. But a lot of times, they could put a person on a ventilator and his heart will still be functioning. And the only question is, the brain and the brain stem, all of the brain is simply not working. There's no life in the brain. And this was a question, there was a very heated question in America in the 1960s. Is that considered life or is that considered death? On the other one hand, the heart is working because he's on a ventilation, he's on a mechanism, but the brain is no longer functioning even on the most basic level. This is called brain death. And the determination of society was brain death is classified as death. And the person is considered death, and you could take him off life support and do all these things. The question is, in Halacha, is that considered death or not death? Very big controversy amongst the poskim. At the end of the day, it's a very academic question, because it is true that Rav Amar, who is the former chief rabbi of Israel, wrote a whole tshuva saying that the Halacha also recognizes brain death as death, and that there he creates an idea of the fact that brain death really just connotes that you can't resuscitate the person, and therefore the breathing is fully stopped and is not returning, and therefore it fits into the criteria of the Gemara. Nevertheless, on a practical level, that's not how things work, because we're dealing with human beings, and even doctors are human beings, although people sometimes forget that. But doctors say, oh yeah, he's brain dead, you could take him off life support, you could do whatever. And the truth of the matter is, doctors don't go through the rigorous process of determining these things, because there's no point to them. They don't care for doing it because it's not relevant to them, and therefore they don't have any need. And therefore a doctor, and even two doctors, even a whole hospital, will make it seem that, the person's brain dead, but they didn't really fully investigate, and therefore there's a total lack of trust. You can't trust doctors in this reality, and it only can be confirmed by evidence. If they did the test, there's very specific tests, there's a few of them that you have to do in order for it to be determined and assessed in a very, very specific way. And it never crosses that threshold by and large. And therefore, it's a pretty academic question and not a pretty practical question. Either way, if such a situation, lo alenu velo alechem, ever were to arise, a person should be in direct contact with a very knowledgeable and experienced da Torah in order to know what to do with the specifics. Baruch Adonai le'olam, amen ve'amen.